So today I want to talk about really what to look for if you want a quality relationship. And I'm going to give you the 7 things that make you absolutely irresistible. But I want you to remember that sometimes toxic people are also attracted to these irresistible traits as well. So I'm going to include some boundary information as to ways that you can make sure that you weed out those people and stay focused on something real and something healthy. And there's some very specific things that you may be doing and not even know it, or some things that are so easy that you aren't doing that you just didn't have any idea about. But these things are what really help you have a healthy, secure relationship. So at the very end of this video, I'm going to give you some very specific steps that you can take to start making these shifts, but I think you're really going to like this. So first of all, if you're new here, welcome. I'm Ketra Thompson, and I'm a certified master hypnotist and a relationship coach. So what I do is I help my clients go back on a subconscious level and reframe their limiting beliefs that are keeping them stuck, keeping them in these patterns that are really creating a dynamic where they aren't having the life and love that they want. We reframe those so that they can finally feel free. So if you'd like to learn more about that, you can check out the link in the description below. There's also a link where you can set up a completely complimentary consultation call with me so that we can talk about what you're dealing with. I can help you get some clarity and I can make my best recommendations. So if you'll want to check that all out there. Also, if this content resonates, I really appreciate it if you could click like and subscribe so you can be notified every time I post a new video. At the end of the day, what matters is your ability to be able to relate with the person that you're in a relationship with. That allows you to build something long-lasting and healthy. But there are all these little pieces to the puzzle, and sometimes we just aren't aware that they are actually as important as they are. The very most attractive quality, or let's just call it number 1 on the list, is empathy. Your ability to actually connect to other people, to see what's going on behind the scenes, to not make snap judgments about them, and to just really be empathetic. That is an incredibly important quality. And the thing is that toxic people only think about themselves. So they don't have a lot of these empathetic qualities. They aren't really thinking about how their behaviors or actions affect another person. And sometimes that can be confusing if they're kind of love bombing or something. Toxic people oftentimes objectify, and they tend to, prioritize someone for their money, their status, sex, and even other things like what they can do for them. They're going to, keep the house clean. They're going to be a nanny to the kids, but they don't actually see them as another equal human being because they don't have a lot of empathy. And so in a really healthy dynamic, one of the very first and most important things that you want in a partner, but you also want to be yourself if you're going to attract someone who's healthy, is that you want to have a really good sense of empathy that you've cultivated, that becomes sort of a second nature for you. The truth is, if there isn't any empathy in a relationship, or at least it's one-sided, maybe one person has empathy and the other doesn't, if that's the case, that person who has the empathy but isn't getting it back from their partner, they never feel seen. They never feel fully understood. And that is a big problem. So that is definitely a good place to start, is cultivating that empathy and really getting aware as to whether or not you show that empathetic side of you to the world. Now, the second thing is paying attention to detail. It's really important when you and your partner both are paying attention to the things that most people don't notice about the other person. So it's like the way you order your coffee. It's your drink of choice. It's the foods you don't like, or how you like them prepared. It's your favorite pillow and why you like it and how you need to have it to sleep. It's all of these little details about you that go unnoticed by the rest of the world, because a toxic person wants you to notice the details about them, but they don't want to notice the details about you. They don't pay attention to the things you say. They don't pick up on the nuances of your comments. They don't pay attention to your preferences because it's all about them. They want you to pay attention to theirs, but they don't pay attention to the other person's. And so it's very attractive when someone actually does notice the details about their partner. And so if you have felt so self-conscious or wrapped up in your own head, it's really important to be able to get out of that mental loop and start noticing the things around you and in your partner and their preferences, and showing a sense of curiosity. Even if you don't vocalize it, you're sort of taking mental note of that. Now, this third really irresistible quality in someone is appreciation. Now, it's their ability to appreciate the small stuff. Someone who has this mindset, they're not demanding extravagant trips or extravagant gifts or whatever. They actually just want to go for a walk with you. They want to watch their favorite show with you. They really want to share the small moments in life, and they realize that it is the little moments that matter. And so they want to share those little pieces of themselves with their partner, and they want their partner to share them with themselves. And they appreciate those moments, all the little things that sometimes might get overlooked. It's a really big deal. And I think it's one of those things that is common when you are sort of a people pleaser type. You can grow resentful that people don't appreciate these things about you if you're with someone kind of toxic. They don't even thank you for the things you've done. And I hear it on both sides. I hear it from women who've been in really toxic relationships where their husband just doesn't appreciate anything they do. They don't even see it. They're oblivious to it. But I've also heard it from a lot of men who just really don't feel appreciated because they're doing things and no one's giving them any credit for it. And instead of communicating openly, they kind of keep it to themselves and they grow in their resentment. So if you want to have that healthy relationship dynamic, you want to be able to appreciate the small stuff, and your partner will absolutely love that you do this if they are also a healthy, emotionally well person, right? They've got this secure attachment and they want something real. They're going to appreciate that you're able to notice those things about them. So when you cultivate appreciation, you're actually grateful for what you have. You're not always wanting the bigger, better thing, and you're not always holding up to your partner another hoop to jump through. You actually appreciate the things you have and you're really grateful for them. That doesn't mean you don't want other things, but you're not making it this constant chase where the other person has to keep jumping through hoops. Now, number 4 is a big one. This is masculine and feminine edge. Now, if you are a woman, you need to have a masculine edge. And if you're a man, you need to have a feminine edge. And here's why. Especially if you're a woman who is wanting to embrace all their femininity but has no masculine edge, you're not going to have any respect. You're not going to command respect. There's too much femininity and it's boring, and it also attracts really toxic people because they want someone with no pushback. The toxic person wants someone with no opinion, wants someone without their own ideas. They just want a doormat to use or to worship them. And so when you overdo it in your femininity, you will attract someone toxic because you're setting yourself up to be used. The actual embodiment of the divine feminine is quite powerful. And so people can forget that. Now, women need this drive. They need this edge. They need to be willing to be assertive about what matters to them and stand up for it when it's necessary. Now, men can have too much masculinity as well. And when they do, they tend to be controlling. They tend to be toxic. They tend to lack empathy and kind of act in an entitled way. And so they aren't able to connect to the softer side of a woman because they haven't cultivated any of their own femininity. Now, we both have both. We are created with a male and a female as our parents. We inherently have both of these things in us. It's just that typically the scale tips one way or the other. But you need to keep in mind that you need to have both in order to really be respected by the other person. And so you don't want to go too far with that. Now, men with a feminine edge, they'll have the ability to embrace empathy. They will be able to empathize with other people. They'll be able to cultivate some of their own creativity. They'll actually be able to hold space for the feminine because they're not threatened by the feminine. They actually have embraced that part of themselves. And that can be really, really attractive to a woman where she feels safe, that there isn't this reactive, sort of angry presence that she needs to be afraid of. She can relax into a man that has a little bit of femininity cultivated in him. And on the flip side, when a woman has some masculine edge, she's not putting up with crap that does not work. She's not keeping her mouth shut about things that aren't okay. And that puts someone in their place. And the thing is, it will keep the toxic people away if you have a bit of a masculine edge as a woman, because those toxic narcissistic types don't like that at all. And they will not like your pushback. So you're going to weed them out quicker by actually stepping into your assertiveness. Now, this doesn't mean you don't be soft and loving and nurturing, but it means you have both of these capabilities in you. And this keeps it interesting on both sides. And it actually stops self-betrayal. Because if you think you have to be all one way, then you hold back your thoughts and your opinions and your insights on things instead of sharing them. And over time, that becomes a pattern of self-betrayal. So we don't want to do that. We want to be in our assertiveness in a very kind, respectful way, but we also want to not stifle our own creative expression or our own power, if that makes sense. Now, the fifth thing that you really want to have to be absolutely irresistible and to be just a really good fit for a healthy relationship is having an optimistic approach to challenges. Now, this means that this is someone who is not automatically assuming the worst about everything. This is someone with a team mentality. They're thinking, okay, here's this thing we got to deal with. We got this, right? It's more like a us against the problem instead of us against each other, right? So you want to use this mentality as an openness to what life throws at you. This optimistic openness of, we're going to figure it out even if we don't know how yet. Now, a toxic person might say, or someone who really doesn't have an optimistic approach or a life view like this, they might point their finger and say, I told you so, or you're always doing this. And they might have this sort of blaming mentality about them. Now, that is an opposite of teamwork mentality, opposite of this optimistic approach. And so really sit with yourself and see if you do these things, because an optimistic person will want the best for everyone. And a toxic person might be mad if one person, let's say their spouse makes more money than them. Now, they don't have this optimistic approach. They actually have a competition approach. And they're always in competition with themselves and with everyone around them, which is the complete opposite of teamwork. And so if you see that in someone, that's kind of a toxic trait and not the best thing for creating a healthy, long-lasting relationship. Now, the sixth irresistible trait is a willingness to repair. And this goes for both people, but especially I think a man who's willing to repair and have a conversation is so much more important than whether or not you had the conflict in the first place. It's whether you can come back together and actually repair, because when you repair, you eliminate that process of sweeping it under the rug where you're ignoring it and it builds up and it creates resentment and assumptions. You're willing to repair. And if you're willing to repair, then you probably have a growth mindset. So it's really important to have this growth mindset if you're going to build together and grow together. And it really does start with a willingness to repair and not being afraid of repair, not being so afraid of what's going to happen, but being able to step into your assertiveness and actually have that conversation. It's a big deal. And I do want to mention, I've heard plenty of stories of women who also will not say they're sorry, who will not repair, who will not hold or take the responsibility for the things that they've done. And so this happens on both sides, but it's incredibly important that both people have a willingness to repair, because if it's only one, you're not going to get very far. And the seventh quality is boundaries. Boundaries are really important. You need to know where to draw the line, when to draw the line. You need to know when to walk away. And you need to be able to do it without it being a defense mechanism or some impulsive choice. You need to be able to create, hold, and implement these boundaries with a clear mind, with a lot of awareness about who you are, what you value most, and whether or not this other person is willing to come together to actually build together, to have good communication, to have the discussion, to problem solve together. If you don't have a mutual partner, it becomes pretty clear when you need to walk away. But a lot of times our feelings get in the way and we can stay stuck for a lot longer than we'd like to because of things like oxytocin and all of that. But you really need to be able to have the boundaries, and those boundaries require clarity, so that you cannot be making an impulsive boundary decision, but a very clear, mindful one. So we've gone over a lot, and I guess the question at this point is, why is all of this stuff so hard? Why does it feel so hard to do things that make sense? All of these things seem understandable, reasonable. I bet you all feel like, yeah, of course, I want someone with all those things, and I want to be all those things. But sometimes you're not. And the reason is because you have this subconscious programming. Now, the subconscious mind is running over 95% of everything you think, feel, and do. And so your knee-jerk reactions are coming from subconscious programming. And so it can feel frustrating because you do things that you don't want to do. And that programming has been in there for so long that it just doesn't feel like there's another way that you can be, even if you want to be. And this is why the hypnotherapy process is so incredibly profound, because it helps you reframe those things on a subconscious level, which you don't typically have access to your subconscious mind. And so when you do, you can create rapid changes. So what's at stake if you don't figure this out? Are you married right now and everything's in turmoil and you keep repeating the same patterns even though you don't want to? Well, maybe your marriage is at stake. Are you single and wanting that person to have a life with, to build with, to connect with, who you really can see and know and understand, and they can do the same for you, where you have that connection, but you keep attracting the wrong people into your life? You don't know how to step into your assertiveness once you really care about someone because the risk seems too big. All of this is subconscious. All of these issues are subconscious programming issues. And you're going to struggle against them until you are able to reprogram those subconscious beliefs so that you can function differently, so that you can behave differently even when you're triggered. Even when you love someone so much that you're afraid you're going to lose them, you will still say the truth. You will say what you need to say. You'll share the truth about you instead of hiding behind a false mask. And that's really important if you are wanting to find that life partner, because it's going to take a lot of time if you keep fumbling without having addressed these issues. My dog, she's barking at something. So you really want to do that subconscious work, and you want to be able to reframe those things so that you can have a new operating system. So what I really do with my clients is I help them identify those issues. I help them reframe them subconsciously, and then I don't just leave them alone to flounder through it. I help them with the implementation process, and implementation is really, really important, especially as we're cementing in these new beliefs. So I'm sure you're wondering, what can you do to fix this? Well, you can create some awareness, which we're doing by talking about it. So that's a good thing. You can do the subconscious work. That is huge and really your fastest path to getting the transformation that you want. You can start noticing your own patterns and your own defaults. Start taking note of what has been repeating in your life. How do you respond in these certain situations, whether it's reactive and angry or whether it's a response that doesn't happen because you care about someone so much that you fear the rejection. Start paying attention to that and start noticing when you push other people away. when you are going into a protective function that might push them away or might create a coping mechanism for you. That is a really big deal, and it gives you a lot of information about those areas in you that really haven't been healed. And so the other thing I'd have you do is challenge yourself to change one thing in the way you interact with other people or behave for 1 month. Because 1 month will give you enough time to see the difference of how you were doing in the beginning versus how you are at the end of the month. And you can kind of take some time to journal and make some notes so that you actually have some clarity about the situations. That's one thing that when you're working with a coach, a mentor, a guide, they can see those patterns that you can't always see, where you just go, oh, well, this thing happened. But they can see that you responded to it differently. They can see the growth when oftentimes we can be really blind to it. But you can help yourself see it if you are kind of journaling about those things regularly. So let's do a quick recap on the 7 things that make you absolutely irresistible and will help you find an actual healthy partner in life or become one for the person that you're already with. Number 1, empathy. Cultivate that empathy. Number 2, pay attention to detail. Notice what matters to them. Number 3, have some appreciation. Have this focus of appreciation in your life, and that keeps your mind focused on the good. Number 4, have that masculine or feminine edge. You need to have that edge because without it, you're one-dimensional and you don't command the respect that you really want to have from the other person. Number 5, you want to have an optimistic approach to life's challenges because let's face it, life is challenging, and having an optimistic approach keeps you from attacking the other person or doing that blame shifting thing. Number 6 is a willingness to repair. Don't sweep that stuff under the rug. Come back, talk about it, connect. That's where you really build a strong foundation for a relationship, is when you're willing to repair together. And number 7, boundaries. Boundaries are so important, knowing when to walk away and knowing when a line has been crossed and not doing it out of reactivity or fear, but doing it out of a sense of calm clarity. Now, all of these things are things I address and teach and coach my clients through, especially in my new men's program. I get you all dialed into all of these things. And in my programs for women, we do the same thing. So there's a little difference between the way we approach it sometimes when it's a man versus a woman, but having that custom work, having the custom process of hypnotherapy, having the custom coaching and accountability and implementation is so important to your success. I have valued every single coach I have ever hired. I have been so grateful for the momentum that they've gotten me to, or that they've helped create, or the accountability they've given, or the new things they've taught me. And so I think that it's always important to have someone who is a mentor, someone who can help guide you, because you end up kind of becoming like the people you're around. And if you're around people just like you, or maybe people who aren't at your level yet, then what's going to help you stretch and grow to the point where you want to be? So again, if you want to learn more about my processes and what I do to help my clients get to that point, check out the link in the description and set up that consultation call, and we can talk all about the subconscious solution to this issue in your life so you can finally create some momentum. And until next time, I hope you curate a life by your own design.